Hello! Hopefully that wasn't too terribly chaotic. We were trying out I was trying out a new, intro situation. It didn't work as well as I had hoped that it would work. Aaron made me, quite a few people came over from Aaron's stream. Feel free to let me know in the chat if you can hear me and everything. Just in case I have technical issues, because there's always new technical issues. Okay, everybody says that the audio video is working. Good, great. Yeah, I was trying to have the animation from that we used for talking and eating donuts going as part of the countdown timer, and it was just glitching like crazy. And I was playing hard-coded audio from my from the iPad via Spotify wired. And anyway, yeah. Things. I am not the live stream expert. Some of you came over from Aaron's stream. Hello, welcome to a way earlier than I usually do at live stream. So I usually live stream at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. However, I was supposed to go to my first freaking live event, indoor event with tickets, non-refundable tickets, of course. This afternoon I was going to go to Stars on Ice. However, I rebounded. So I had COVID. I'm now on day 17 of testing positive for COVID. And the original advice was, for the first 5 days you have COVID, you should quarantine. Then then between day 5 and 10, as long as you don't have a fever for 24 hours, you can go out, but just wear a well-fitting mask. And I had followed that. I started testing negative on day 10, and then day 14, I started testing positive again. And this is likely because, as I talked about on a previous stream, I got Paxlovid, which is the antiviral for COVID. And I had it between day 3 and day 8. It's a 5-day course of antivirals. And I guess it is initially in the trials of Paxlovid, the amount of people that rebound, i.e. testing negative and then testing positive again, was the same as placebo. It was only 2%. However, the anecdata from my friends that have gotten Paxlovid is that almost all of them have had a Paxlovid rebound. And initially I was thinking, well, I don't have very many symptoms. I just had a runny nose and otherwise was fine from when I tested positive again. And then that same day, the CDC came out with an emergency announcement for physicians that essentially said you need to treat a rebound where you're testing negative and then you're testing positive again as though it's a new infection. And I had so many things on this weekend, but I also had a bright, actually, I can show you all of my, this is so silly, but I'm so over this, y'all. I am absolutely so over this. Tia says, hi, wow, can't believe I'm catching a live stream of yours. Well, yeah, this is definitely going to be a different live stream from Aaron's because I am not going to talk about live streaming beyond to make sure that I'm working. But I'm glad to have you. Oh, Tia, I don't think you actually came from that. But yes, the advantage of doing these early in the day for me, earlier in the day for me, is that Europe can come. The downside is that Australia, it's the middle of the night there, so you can't please everyone on the planet time-wise, which is a problem, especially if you have predominantly a English-speaking audience, because we're very spread out, because colonialism, I guess. So, yeah. This is my test results, by the way. So I first had COVID symptoms on 5/12, which I wasn't testing positive yet. And then as you can see, the lines were getting darker and darker. I took 2 on the same day because I had to take one, on camera to get the Paxlovid prescribed. I guess because I don't know, they were thinking people would want to scam Paxlovid. I don't know. It's whatever. Then and it stayed strong, and then I started testing negative. There's a super faint line on the 520, but on 521 I started testing negative again. And then 526, look at that line. Look how dark that is. So it's getting faint again. I'm so over this. I'm so over this whole freaking pandemic. I know I'm very lucky. It has been very mild for me. But that's also one reason I'm writing this stream alone, is because Aaron is staying up at the studio, and in order to not have me get Aaron COVID. So super fun. David says, I came over from Aaron Parecki's stream. Cyber Shadow says, hi from Europe. Tia says, I'm a UK viewer, so I never catch it. I know, I'm sorry. It's rough to figure it out. When I first started live streaming like 3 years ago, we were alternating between weeks. Like, we were doing one that worked for Europe and then one that worked for Australia, like on alternate weeks. But I found that having a consistent time was more important than having accommodating everyone, essentially. But Eric says, you said no fun things, but I still see a donut in the background. Yes, it is true. We do donuts here. So the donut today, also, like, look how cute this little plate is for it. But the donut today is a peanut butter cacao old-fashioned donut. And if you're a regular viewer, you probably know I am not really a fan of chocolate, but I can stand cacao in small amounts, and I really like peanut butter. So hopefully this is going to be good. It has been crazy pants at the donut shop that I usually go to this weekend, because Netflix has a food series called Phil Loves Food, I think. Anyway, they came to Portland and they featured the donut shop that I usually go to on it. So there's often a line, especially like on a holiday weekend or something, but I guess it's been particularly bananas. The Journaling Broom says, sorry to hear about your COVID troubles. Hope you get better soon. Thanks. I'm actually, I'm doing fine. Like, I have very, very few symptoms. Like, I have a slightly runny nose that no one would think was COVID if I wasn't testing hecka positive on these antigen tests. But like, it could just be like seasonal allergies. I was sneezing a ton the past 2 days, but otherwise no issues. Apparently, so Paxlovid rebound is happening like a ton for people, and I think it's largely because why it's different. Based on what I've read, one of the reasons it's so different than it was in the original trials is because they did the trials for Paxlovid when Delta was the circulating strain, and Omicron is the much more infectious strain, and people show symptoms at a different point in the course of the illness in Omicron, theoretically earlier. And I guess that one of the reasons we're seeing so much rebound is that Delta recommended a 5-day course of Paxlovid, but theoretically, perhaps we actually need like a 10-day course because people are getting it so much earlier in the cycle because they're showing symptoms earlier. Anyway, I don't know. Philip says, I do love food. Are you the star of a Netflix food show? I haven't actually watched it yet, but I'm happy for the employees. It sounds like they're getting, hopefully getting a lot of tips and also a lot of business. This is they do seasonal flavors, and their flavors last 2 months during the more busy season. And usually towards the end of the flavors, their business will kind of die down, and they're starting new flavors next week. And but it's been like this huge peak in traffic because of the show. So just a star in my own sky. Well, you can give us your food data and we can all review it here. Yeah, so this week has been like hecka depressing. I don't know if anybody else has felt like the world is very overwhelming and you don't know what to do to fix things, because real sad stuff happened this week. And instead of trying to take an economic spin on it, which I think is valid, Marketplace did a whole piece about the economics and business of gun manufacturers, and We Bravely Go, a friend of mine in the personal finance space, she started talking about how you can invest without if you don't want to invest in guns as well, like mutual funds that exclude guns and things like that. I just couldn't. I didn't want to put a economics business spin on this. I'm exhausted and tired, and it's not just from the COVID. So I decided, and it's just the world is just it's just real hard to be a human these days, in the world, especially with access to information about how the world is going. So I thought we would just look at my expenses from the past couple months. It's been a couple months since I did one of those roundups of like what my expenses are. If you look down in the description below, you can see links. I publish expense reports on my blog every single month for, I don't know, going on like 10 years now, over 10 years. And it's fun to look at them on Livestream. Also, if people are interested in digging through my YNAB budget, could be fascinating. Yeah, I guess let's talk about it. Eric says, expenses, yes. Ruang Silpa, I hope I pronounced your name right, said, hello from Bangkok, Thailand. It's almost 2 a.m. here. Props for attending despite this being an absolutely awful time. So my normal live stream time works much better for Thailand. I think it's at like I think it's at like mid-morning in Thailand. It is at normal live stream time. I think is at 7 a.m. Australian Western Standard Time, maybe 9 a.m. Anyway, so it's close to Bangkok time, but unfortunately, it is this is just a terrible time for that. But it works for the Europeans, so 6 of one, half dozen the other. I don't know. So when we started doing these live streams, it was before everything was shutting down and there was nothing happening. And we were doing them on Saturday nights. And then last summer we switched to doing Sunday nights because we kind of found that people started having plans again on Saturday last summer. People started doing things again. And because of that, we were like, let's do it on Sunday nights. People are less likely to have plans. It's more kind of like a chill time. But now I've noticed that my own calendar is filling up with like Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon activities. So I'm wondering if maybe I should switch to a weekday live stream. But I do enjoy having it at a consistent time. So, all right, let's dive into expenses. So a couple months ago, I did a... Hold on. I'm gonna pull up the screen. There we go. There we go. So a couple months ago, I did a live stream right before we went to Vienna and was doing a YNAB budget for how much I thought I was going to spend. Overall, I ended up spending under $400 as expected. Altogether, the trip, I believe, cost about $500. So here's the things to mention about that. This was 10 days in Vienna and Bratislava. It is important to note that I did not include lodging in that, mostly because I paid for the lodging in Bratislava using Chase points. So we stayed at an Airbnb in Bratislava. It was super cute. And paid for that using Chase Sapphire Preferred points. And then my hotel in Vienna was covered because I was staying with Aaron, who was there for a work conference, which ended up turning into a COVID quarantine for Aaron because he caught it when I was there. But so lodging wasn't covered. Flights don't appear in this because I booked the tickets for this in January, so this wouldn't appear in my monthly expenses. However, altogether, I used American Airlines miles, and it was very reasonable. I think I spent like $45,000 on round trip on the miles, and it wasn't even like a bad flight itinerary. And I think the taxes and fees were like almost $150, which brings me up to about $500 for the whole trip. The reason the taxes and fees were so high was because the only way to fly in was using the Heathrow airport. And if you don't know, the UK, especially particularly Heathrow, it depends on the airport, has specific fuel surcharges that they charge. And so if you have an award ticket that goes through the UK, you'll pay much higher fuel surcharges. So generally, if you're trying to minimize the amount of actual dollars you need to spend on an award ticket, it's best to not fly via Heathrow. Also, gotta say, Heathrow just drives me nuts. Like, Aaron had like a massive problem where like all his flight got canceled on the way back through Heathrow. Also, like the UK just decided the pandemic was over, so it was like very serious precautions were being taken in Vienna, and like everybody was just like over it already in March in the UK, so it didn't feel like the most COVID comfy to me. But uh that being said, I do like one of the places to eat in the Heathrow airport and for a layover. So, Eric says YouTube regularity of schedule for live streams is better for the algorithms. Yeah, I know. Well, at this point, you know, I'm how many years into YouTube? Like 16 years into YouTube and maybe more. And I have like 1,000 subscribers. So clearly I'm not very concerned about the algorithm. Very grateful for all those subscribers, but reminder, if you are new here and you haven't subscribed, you should subscribe to the channel below. And maybe we can get to like 1,100 or something like that. We were right on the end. So yeah, that was like the big expense. Food was not absolutely out of control when it came to expenses in Vienna. The COVID related was almost entirely the COVID related expenses were almost entirely masks. The tests were free in Wien, which was really nice. When we went to Finland in December, we ended up having to buy tests that we could take remotely to get back to the US. Because the tests in Finland were so expensive. It was like 85 euros or something for a PCR, and that was like the cheapest, and that was only available at the airport. Some of them were like up to like 150 euros, which, to be fair, Finland, expensive country. But you know, you need them to fly back to the States, especially in December. You still did. I think they might scrap at any time. But yeah, luckily the tests were totally free, easy to get, texted to your phone, which was particularly nice for Aaron, who ended up getting COVID and then needed to have tests like all the time. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, my groceries were super low because I was out of town for 10 days. So like my average over the past like 10 years is usually around $135 to $150 a month for groceries. But obviously, the food when I was out of town was that. Philip says, for your trip, did you exchange currency once you got there? Just use credit cards or other options? So everywhere in Slovakia took cards. And so we didn't need to get any currency out. And I was able to just use my credit card. However, we found, except like it was way easier to buy transit with actual Euro coins. But I had some Euro coins that I just brought. I was really surprised how many things in Austria were, especially given like how like technologically savvy and organized Austria generally is. In Austria, there were a ton of places that were cash only, so I ended up pulling money out of the ATM. I never use currency exchanges because they're highway robbery. Usually the best way to do it is just pull money out of the ATM, and I get a good mid-market rate with my I always choose to pull it out in local currency. I don't get it converted by the ATM machine. Instead, I have my bank convert it because they give me a better mid-market rate. Usually the ATMs are trying to make money off you and they give you kind of a crappy exchange rate. But that's how I usually do it. And I think altogether I had to pull out like I think I pulled out like about 100 euros for the trip. And it was mainly because restaurants were just like straight up just cash only like all the time. Also, being in Vienna, there was a lot of like tourist attractions. I went to a few. Like I went back to the Vienna, the big church in Wien, and climbed to the top, which I've done before, and that's like €7 or something, and they would only take cash. So, yeah, I mainly needed it for that. I don't think I ended up. I did have some. Yeah, I had some euros left over at the end of the trip, and then I sold them to Aaron, who was going back to Europe like a month later. Yeah, that's the Vienna. Bag is included there. Oh yeah, and it was only like $7 for SIM cards, so pretty great on the scale of I got an eSIM as usual. You can tell you're in Vienna when you spend $46 on museums. Also, I gotta say, the coffee situation in Wien, even though they're like obsessed with coffee shops, the actual quality of the coffee, not great. However, we found 2 coffee shops that actually made what I felt like was a good and proper coffee. Slovakia's got that nice, that former Yugoslavia, vibe, former Eastern Europe vibe of having very good coffee. I think it's like the Croatian, Turkish influence, but they had good coffee in Slovakia. Yeah, so that's March. Oh yeah, the figure skating is one of the, it wasn't crazy because I was out of town, but in April, finally got a skating coach. So I've been kind of self-teaching and then occasionally getting privates. And then I have like a weekly class that isn't, I'm not learning new skills in that class. It's more like, if you're used to ballet and stuff like that, you know that you attend class even when you're a professional dancer, and it's like a fundamentals class. So I'm in this adult class where we like blast Pink Floyd and we work on edges and stuff in a group. It's really great. That also, being enrolled in that class gets me unlimited ice time at the really tiny rink that I mostly skate at. However, I really do need a private coach, which is once you're at a certain level in figure skating, privates are really the only way to move forward. Obviously I had lots of private lessons back when I was competitive, when I was a teenager, and finally found a coach that I think I vibe with. I'm switching to ice dancing from freestyle, so I have a bunch of pattern dances to learn and stuff like that. Also, because I'm doing ice dancing, which is 2 people with each other, it's kind of like ballroom dancing on ice. It's very technical. I need to skate at the bigger rink, which is unfortunately 12 miles by bike away, which means that I end up spending like all afternoon when I go up there because I ride my bike for 50 minutes, skate. Once I'm up there, I'm like, well, it took me 50 minutes to get up here, so I spend as many hours as I can there, and then another hour back. So it takes up like the whole afternoon when I go up there. And I have to pay for freestyle sessions up there. So, Tia says, just wondering if the hours worked are for your day job or hours focusing on work and studying. That is a really interesting question because most of the hours worked are actually in April are almost entirely Oh My Dollar hours. So I have not started my new day job yet. And I'm in this weird transitional period right now where Oh My Dollar is like all of my income, but Oh My Dollar isn't really a full-time income anymore because I've had a day job for the past 2 years. So, those hours worked are almost all Oh My Dollar hours. However, I studied on top of that. And April, all I was really doing was studying for an exam I took on May 6th. An exam I took on May 6th, which I passed, which is for starting my new job. Once I took the exam, I then have a 30-day licensing period. So I have preliminary licensing that is pending with the Securities and Exchange Commission, but I can't actually start my job until the 30th day after application, and that is coming up. It's in like 2 weeks. So I've been in this weird no man's land, which I'm really grateful that I have enough savings that it has been fine because Oh My Dollar isn't really paying a full-time rate right now. Like, luckily, my expenses are relatively low. I mean, obviously, figure skating is a huge chunk of change. And as you'll see from my May expenses, I went a little wild once I finally passed the exam I've been studying for. So yeah, the hours worked is almost entirely oh my dollar because I left my other day job in January, so I haven't had that. My mom says figure skating equals dollar, dollar, dollar. Yes, I'm doing it. Like, I track my marginal cost per hour of figure skating. Let's actually calculate it out for this year. So it's a little annoying because I haven't been able to go to the rink as much because I have had COVID. Okay, so year to date, I've only done 95 hours of skating, which isn't quite as many as I would hope. And then let's run the report and see how much dollars I've spent on it and what my marginal cost per hour is, because that's the way I track it. Part of the reason I do that is because the way that I pay for ice time at my main rink is I essentially get unlimited ice time. The downside of that is it's almost all public ice, which means it can be really, really crowded. So I pretty much can't go on the weekends and like expect to get any work done because I'm a, you know, I'm a big person relative to the average child that's skating there, and I'm also a lot faster and more skilled than most of the people that skate at that rink because it's really a recreational rink. Okay, so spending year to date, select none. Now let's select my figure skating categories. The real thing that affects my finances right now with that is like endlessly frustrating is that I'm looking at my business budget. Sorry. The thing that's really frustrating right now is I desperately need new skates. My figure skates are old enough to vote and they are like falling apart and I can't just get a new pair of them because the company that made them doesn't exist anymore. And generally you would go through boots like a lot faster, but I quit the sport for 15 years. Luckily my feet are still the same. However, my feet are arthritic and screwed up from doing this sport, and because of that, I absolutely need custom skates. Like, once we modify stock figure skates, like, we could do semi-customs, but once we add all the modifications to them, the cost is almost the same as custom boots, and custom boots will just fit me a lot better. But the problem is there isn't like a clear substitute for the type of skates I had before because the good news is that figure skates have actually gotten a lot better, a lot lighter, a lot more new technology has been developed since I got my skates 20 years ago. And I need to buy them. But the thing that's frustrating me is getting custom skates is like a huge gamble because you spend like they're going to cost like almost $2,000. And that's just for the boots, not even the blades. And you don't know if that style is going to work for you. I want to get a slightly different boot style than I've had before because I have a boot style that's meant to support doing double and triple jumps. I am no longer doing double and triple jumps because I am no longer a teenager. And I'm switching to ice dancing, which usually has a more flexible boot because there's no jumping and it's cut lower in the back so that you can point your toe more. But I've never had an ice dancing boot before. So the question is like, will I like it? Which brand should I go with? It's just really frustrating because it's just like a huge gamble. And yeah, you can't like just straight up return them if they don't work. You just have to pay back and forth shipping and like continually work with the company to try to figure out what's going on with them. Christopher says it is worse than buying a car. It really like feels worse than buying a car, I would say. Tia says, congrats on passing your exam. Thanks. Once we get to the May expenses, you'll see just how much I celebrated about that. So thank you. I really enjoyed studying. Like, I hated it when I hated it, but I started to really get into the groove and I found a lot more tools that were like making studying work for me. And I'm considering going for a certified financial planner credential, which would be like another year of part-time studying. And I'm really considering it. I've already like figured out when I could do it, like found the courses. So essentially, I'm going to have my boss write me a letter of recommendation so I can apply for some scholarships to take those. But it's actually not outrageous. And the best part is if you want to, that can transfer to for a master's of science, which I still would really like a master's degree. So Philip says the modern skates are cool. They even have wheels. Kidding. I actually do have custom roller inline figure skates. So they have like a rubber toe pick on them. I got them as a pandemic like purchase. When all the rinks were closed, all of the figure skaters were just going wild, like buying buying roller figure skates. And, you know, we all thought we were going to become inline figure skaters. The answer is no. Okay, so figure skating year to date, I have spent $435.98. And I have skated 98 hours? 95.5 hours. So, my marginal cost per hour is $4.50 an hour, which, you know, it's still below what I spend on what I make per hour. So that's good. I'm spending less than minimum wage. So, you know, it was a lot cheaper before because essentially the more hours I went to the rink, the lower the marginal cost per hour got. But now that I am taking privates, it's $40 for a half hour private. And then I have to pay for the ice time at the other rink, which is like $12 for like 2.5 hours. If I go to a freestyle, it's $15 for an hour. So it essentially every time I take a private, it costs me $55. And I do that like once a week, essentially. But I keep either traveling or coming down with COVID. So yeah, and not to mention it cost me 2 hours of travel time. I mean, it's nice because I'm riding my bike, but so it's, you know, additional exercise. But the downside of that is that if I sweat on the way up there, I show up at the rink like sweaty, and then I go into a freezing cold rink. And so I've been having to like bring an entire change of clothes in order to like make sure I have no residual sweat on my body before I then go sweat on the ice. It won't be as bad once it's out of rainy season, because part of the reason I'm sweating is from the like wearing rain gear when I'm biking up there. So obviously May is not totally done, so I don't have all the stats on it yet. And I have now had COVID for 17 days of May. So that factors in here a bunch. So thus far this month, I've only done the, I think 2 ice skating lessons. So that's been the majority of the figure skating costs, has been just lessons and ice time. We also signed a lease extension, and rent is finally going to go up in July. I say finally because we've lived here for 5.5 years and they hadn't raised the rent on us yet. So I'm just feeling lucky that they only raised it by $100. And theoretically, we're only going to have to pay it for 10 months more, starting in July when the price goes up, because Erin's building a house that we will move into when it's done. So, that's the big thing. Oh, yes, travel. So, booked a flight to New Zealand. And the $48 obviously is just taxes and fees. Here's my recommendation. July in New Zealand, after they've been closed for over 2 years, is really kind of a terrible time to plan a trip to New Zealand if you're looking to get award tickets, because there were very, very few flights, because July is the middle of winter in New Zealand, not really tourist season. Not to mention a ton of their tourist stuff has just been shut off. So there's been very few flights like in and out of New Zealand, especially from North America, because they've really only been open to Australians. And that's only been for a little while. But I did finally manage to find award tickets, but it took me like almost a half day when I was stuck on the couch with COVID. The whole reason we are going in July is because Erin got accepted to speak at a conference on my birthday. So as a July birthday baby from the Northern Hemisphere, I have never had a winter birthday, but I get to have a winter birthday because I'm going to be in New Zealand for my birthday. But the packing for this trip is going to be ridiculous because it was so hard to find. It was so hard to find the like an awards ticket. The only awards tickets that I could end up finding, it wasn't even like a matter of like these awards tickets are too expensive. It was a matter of like there was almost no availability, and I was looking at like I have a ton of points because I've been gathering all these points the entire pandemic, and not able to spend them. And I've also had like trips that I've booked on points canceled a ton of times, so I'm just like things keep getting refunded. I have all these points that I acquired from before the pandemic that I haven't been able to use. So, initially I was like, for my birthday, I'm going to try to get an award ticket that is business class to New Zealand. And then it went down to like, I'm just trying to find a single ticket to New Zealand that I can buy with awards tickets. And what I ended up having to buy involves a layover in Hawaii, either direction. So I'm going to lay over in Honolulu on the way out, which is only like, I think 16-hour layover, but like enough to leave the airport. I have to book a hotel. But that'll be on 4th of July. So I don't know, Waikiki, 4th of July sounds kind of interesting. I've never been to Hawaii. I've been to 47 US states, and one of them that I have not been to is Hawaii. So I am excited about that. And then on the way back, it's 24 hours in Maui. And this was not because I was trying to maximize stopovers. I had no choice. It was so hard. But that being said, Hawaii is not terribly challenging to get to with points from Portland because Hawaiian Airlines and Alaska Airlines both have the Portland airport as a hub, and both of them do a lot of flights into Hawaii. That being said, I've never prioritized it, partially because I'm trying to visit all of the countries in the world, and Hawaii is just, it's very expensive, whatever. So it's on the way to New Zealand though. It's like, it's 7 hours, I think, to Hawaii from here. And then it's like another 9 hours or something like that to Auckland. So it's kind of perfect. And it'll be great. Cheryl says, you're going to talk this out of existence by talking about it. Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. I've done that enough times, right? Like, I've now had 3 trips to Copenhagen canceled since like mid last year. So the Journaling Broom says, honestly, that sounds like a nice place to lay over. Hope you have fun. Yeah, the downside is that like a lot of the stuff that I think people really like to do in Hawaii is like hikes and stuff like that. None of which I'm going to really have enough time for. But I don't know. Things kind of fun. I still have to book the awards nights. I have chase points that I'm going to use for the awards nights in both places. One thing I noticed though, there were very few awards nights in Maui on the way back. I think because Maui is like a way smaller town, way less touristy than Honolulu. And it's still like a lot more touristy than a lot of other islands in Hawaii. But so I noticed there were only like 3 hotels that I could book with Chase Award points in Maui. So I'm a little concerned about that. But Philip says, thanks for being so open about sharing your budgets. I find it so encouraging. Just yesterday, I was thinking about developing budgets for June, July, and August instead of my usual loosey-goosey habits. Oh, thanks. I'm glad. The reason I share them is because 1, I think that people are way too stigmatized about money, and 2, like I'm fine with sharing it, and I know that it helps like encourage people. I also don't think that all budgets, I think loosey-goosey, if it's working for you, is great. I don't think everybody needs to track everything down to the dollar like I do. I think for a lot of people, that makes them feel really unhealthy. But if you don't feel great about like the loosey-goosey style of budgeting, like if you feel like something's wrong, if you feel like maybe you just need to like kind of tailor it in, sometimes I recommend for people, like if you feel like you're kind of on autopilot with your budget, but you want to do a check-in, you just do like a month where you track your expenses just to see if what you think is happening is what's happening. We are doing Summer of Funds this summer with Oh My Dollar. And that is a good opportunity to kind of try out a new budgeting method, a new budgeting app, One of the things we do is the budgeting app games, which is essentially where the community comes together and reviews different budgeting software and apps. There's been new ones that have come out since last year's budgeting app games, so could be a good opportunity. Eric says New Zealand has been so isolated on the tourism restrictions like Japan. Yeah, I mean, island, like, keep it. They didn't host the Olympics like Japan did, though. The thing that I am concerned about is I was like, oh no, am I going to bring COVID to this island? I also really don't want to end up having a quarantine in New Zealand because I think they're going to keep it quite strict. So Eric says Hawaii for the win. I'm like excited about Hawaii, but I don't want people to think that like my main trip is to Hawaii because I'm only going to be there for like a total of 36 hours between two islands. So I'm not really going to get like a Hawaii experience, but I'm going to leave the airport, which means it counts for me. So, you know, on my gathering everything up. So, the places that I went really over the top. So, one, I bought a ticket. This is not I actually found someone to buy the Stars on Ice ticket that I had today where I can't go because I have COVID. So luckily that is $45 cheaper than it was this morning. But I bought tickets for a YouTuber I really like, Daniel Howe, who is coming to Portland and doing like a stand-up show, which I'm pretty excited about. And that's in like November. So hopefully I won't get COVID again right before that because I feel like it could happen considering that I got COVID on the same, I re-got COVID for the second time on the same weekend that I had so many plans. Mother's Day dinner was in the gifts category, but look at these restaurants and bars. So on average, I spend like $20 a month on restaurants, and that's like been very consistent for like 6 years. However, the restaurants and bars was like the happy hour where I most likely caught COVID. I had a happy hour after I passed the exam, saw a ton of friends. However, we picked the bar because it had like it has good vegan food because I don't drink alcohol, so I wanted somewhere with proper food that I could eat. And it has like an outdoor kind of indoor outdoor like back area with like a huge garage door window that opens. However, the day I took my exam and had this happy hour, it was like biblical level downpours outside. And because of that, they couldn't like open the window, nor was it like reasonable to be in the outdoor seating, even though it was like covered. It just looked wet and soggy because it was like an outdoor street seating and it was on a slope on the street. So that's probably where I got COVID. So, you know, that's fun. And then also Mother's Day dinner with my mom, where it looks like I didn't give her COVID. But then this is the real category. Okay, I know this looks like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. However, I had put off a ton of purchases that I needed to make, like replacements of clothes that I use for travel, like merino wool, like stuff that's like 10 years old. And I need to get a new coat. And I was going to put off the coat situation, but I'm going to New Zealand when it's going to be winter there. And I was like, I think I actually need to get this coat. So all of this clothes was used, except some of the merino, and it's very high, but stuff that I usually hang on to for like 5 to 10 years. So it's not bananas, but yeah, it is little pricey, but some of them were treats because I just kept putting off buying any of the clothes until after I passed the exam, and I kind of did it as a treat. And then also the coat and everything happened when I was stuck in the house with COVID quarantine, and I was like, I feel like I deserve stuff. Anyway, anybody have any questions about my expenses? This is what I hate. Why are groceries so expensive now? It's inflation, yo. It sucks. I don't like it. No one likes it. I don't like inflation. It's not fun. Should we do the donut? I think it's donut time. I think donut time. Let's go. Oh no. Did it work? I thought I had it. Main. Do. There we go. Flute of the week. That's not the right one. All right, so today's donut is a peanut butter cacao donut. Here, I have a donut light. Let's turn this on. Maybe it'll make it a little better. Don't lose the iPad, Lily. So it's an old-fashioned donut, which is like the kind that are quite kind of hard, but with the little triangle on the top. And then it's got a peanut butter with cacao nibs on it. And it's not chocolate underneath. It's just like a regular one. Aaron says, what did I do to the donut script? I don't know. You really broke it. That's why the intro wasn't working. I was clicking buttons and the wrong things were coming up. All right. Let's go for it. Okay. I can tell you exactly what this tastes like. This tastes like you are 11 years old and your parents aren't home from work yet and you've decided to make a sandwich. So you decide to make a sandwich that is peanut butter and chocolate chips. That's what this tastes like. It's pretty good. It's really dry on the inside because it's the old-fashioned. It's not like a fluffy donut, but I like it. As a non-fan of chocolate, I can take cacao when it's mixed in with this much peanut butter because the peanut butter is like way more strong. Aaron says all the clips in the companion buttons changed. I noticed that one of them turned on your footage from Iceland, so I wonder if that's what got it all screwed up. While I eat this donut and decide what the rating is, anybody have any questions about anything? I don't know. Paxlovid rebound, how I've had 17 days of COVID now. Eric says, I definitely saw Iceland for a moment. Yeah, that one was like, the one that played Iceland was labeled Floof of the Week. So, yeah, apparently everything got offset by one. I noticed they were kind of like all a little off. It is Aaron's fault. I just press the buttons. Aaron does all the work to make the buttons work. Y'all. I gotta say, I think this is actually, I take it back. It's a 4. This is a 4 out of 5. Tia says, when I get a job, I will save up to visit the donut shop where you get your donuts from, lol. Well, you can at least, I mean, I know you get to vicariously experience them on the live streams, but they were on Netflix. They were on Netflix, and you can watch it. Phil Likes Food, I think is what it's called, or Phil Loves Food. I believe it's a Netflix original, so I'm sure it's available in every country. But you can, like, I don't know, hear more about them. It's not the same as testing the donuts, but it is totally a keeper. It actually tastes also kind of like peanut butter chocolate cookie dough. It's good. All around, it's a really solid donut. It's a little dry. That's the only reason it's not a 5. I think think a lot of us love food. I think that's just how being human is. A lot of us love food. Oh, I'm really getting myself covered. Oh, so you know how I need to make edited videos on this channel? It's a regular recurring theme that I shouldn't just live stream. Because I'm ramping up with my new job this summer, and I won't have a full-time amount of work at my new job. I think that this summer I'm gonna aim for weekly videos, and I'm saying this publicly because otherwise I won't do it. But if you have any ideas of edited videos you think would be fun to see for me, especially things that maybe don't work as well in a live stream. So I definitely want to do some like economics-y, finance-y budgeting ones, and I'm gonna do some planner videos. But I think I might do a video about like Pedalpalooza, which happens in Portland and I've been involved with for a bunch of years. I don't know. Oh my god, I got the name so wrong. Somebody feed Phil. Thank you. Yeah, so it's the Dough Donuts episode. I don't know if it's like a whole Portland episode. I should watch it just so I know. Christy says, ooh, summer of videos. It sounds like a fun forum challenge. Do you think other people would do it? I'm barely motivated to do it. It would be kind of fun to get together a pod of people that struggle with consistency on YouTube like me and see if we can all do it. You know, Pedalpalooza is running all summer this summer because they did it last summer because the previous summer there was no Pedalpalooza because COVID. So last summer they spread it out all summer with also the idea that instead of all the rides being crammed into 1 month, it used to be the Pedalpalooza was only 2.5 weeks. Now, for a bunch of years, it's been the entire month of June. But they thought, okay, if we make it a whole 12 weeks long, that kind of makes up for all the rides that didn't get to happen in 2020. And it'll spread out the rides. So there will be fewer people on rides and maybe it'll be a little more COVID safe. I was thinking like, well, okay, Pedalpalooza is all summer this year. Maybe I can have my own personal vlogapalooza. By the way, like the level that this started at was me thinking I should make a video every single day in June. And then I slowly chipped away at that because there was no way that was going to happen. If I haven't even been able to consistently make a weekly video or a monthly video, what makes me think I can make one every single day? I mean, like the big thing would be if I had to do it every day, I would lower my quality threshold so significantly. But the thing is, I don't want to make stuff that is super low quality, which is I feel like where I would end up being if I made a video every single day in June. But if I make it once a week, yeah, I'm gonna have to lower my quality threshold from my idea that I can only make a video once every like 7 months. But it won't be so low. Aaron says, I would be in for that challenge. Okay, maybe, I feel like if we have like even 3 people that are in this challenge, we can make like a little, you know, group chat or Discord or something and chat with people. Oh. Apparently the problem was a bug in Companion and they fixed it in February. Philip says you could have 4 members send you their favorite way to budget or log expenses or whatever, and you edit them together with your reactions. Oh yeah, reaction videos are pretty easy. We've done a couple live streams where people have come on, and we called it Other People's Money, and it was me, like walking through people that track their expenses. And we also had money diaries, which I believe for Summer of Funds, we're going to have we're going to like give people a sticker if they do a money diaries, because our money diaries kind of fell off like sometime last year because I think we all just like the world was too hard and nobody wanted to keep a money diary. Also, for a lot of people, the money diaries were super boring because no one was going anywhere or doing anything. But you know, I'm now going where and doing things as long as I don't have COVID. So yeah, I don't know. Could be fun. Maybe I'll ask people for like their ideas, because I also have like a lot of blog posts that have been really popular, or podcast episodes that I could turn into a video version. People are always asking for more travel hacking videos. And one thing I run into is it's so situational, it changes so much. But yeah. Uh, Daniel says, what software did you use to track and calculate your year to date for ice skating expenses, if any? So that is YNAB for me. I can put my YNAB up on the screen if we want. Let me put it up on the screen. If I stop streaming from here, I can, hopefully without it being too chaotic, I can show this off for all of you guys. Maybe. Why does Apple keep moving like where screen mirroring is? Okay, hold on. Can we see it? There we go. So this is my You Need a Budget, which I believe I've linked to down below. Let's see if we can zoom in, because this is very, very... But yeah, so I use YNAB for almost all of my things, but the cool part is you can kind of see the breakdown of the different things: ice time, coaching, random, skate sharpening. So ice time is the vast majority, which is one of the most expensive things you can buy in the world. Tia says, I have a video idea request, but it might be a bit personal, so you don't have to. I was wondering if you could tell us about your job/career journey. Oh, I'm happy to talk about it. I might wait to do that until later this year, simply because I'm trying to make sure that my current job is like a real job. Which is really silly, because I'm licensed and everything, but I'm going to be working for a super small firm, and it's not like, I haven't made any money from it yet, but I'm tied to it. I have a SEC license for it. So, yeah, but I'm happy to talk about it. I've had all sorts of very interesting jobs, so I think that they might be fascinating to people. Like, I worked as a congressional aide. I worked for the Democratic Party as a digital director, which was the worst job I've ever had. Worked as a fundraiser for bike nonprofits. Worked as a bike safety teacher. Anyway, I've had all sorts of jobs, so it can be kind of interesting. And then also I can talk about starting Oh My Dollar, which is, used to be my full-time job. Tia says, I'm very interested in this topic because I totally fell off track in my career and now wondering how to bounce back or get back on track. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me was that I had to reconcile the fact, like, I essentially spent all of 2020 and 2021 working a job that was like a fine job, and it was related to what I went to school for, because I went to school late too, so I knew what I was going to school for. But so I studied economics, but I focused particularly on transport economics, and I worked doing general transit feed specification data, which essentially is like glorified, highly skilled map and data entry tech, essentially. But working particularly with bus schedules and everything. And I took that job because my friend owned the company, and my friend owned the company, and then I just sort of like went into the this is a holding pattern for me, because I was also working at the radio station, and the whole idea was that I was going to become full-time at the radio station that Oh My Dollar had been on for a bunch of years, and I'd been a radio host at. But then that kind of blew up in my face, which you can read about in the newspaper. And I just felt like I was in a weird holding pattern, and it was a really great pandemic job because it was already like a remote company. It was a good company. It was small, like 18 people. We all really cared about each other. There was no pressure to go into the office or anything, because even before the pandemic, we were 90% remote. But I had this like lingering feeling of like, this is clearly not what I'm supposed to do. I'm not supposed to be like a glorified data entry tech for the rest of my life. And I've been working very hard on having my full-time job be in media and doing media stuff, but media is making me miserable. And meanwhile, I was going through all these back and forths and contract negotiations around the radio show and the podcast, that a ton of which I still can't talk about. But they were making me more and more just concerned about making a living in media, because there's very few full-time, reasonably paid jobs in media. Everybody kept getting laid off and fired, and it's just kind of a miserable field. But I like making stuff and I like teaching people. And so, yeah, the new job that I have kind of fell into my lap, but it's kind of an extension of Oh My Dollar. But yeah, I'd love to talk about it. Also, I have 2 book situations going on right now for 2 other books. So I can talk about that a little bit. Cheryl says, no COVID. You keep trying, though. You don't have COVID? That's good. I still have COVID. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to, yeah. Thank you. That is a good request. The thing for me is that I've stopped feeling like one has to have a career track. And I think that has made it a lot easier and better for me to not be upset about being off the track, because I've now had several times in my life where I felt like, oh, this is the track that, one goes on, and then opportunities have come up. I've taken opportunities. Sometimes they've been good and sometimes they've been bad. And I've stopped beating myself up over it, because I think they're like, it's just fake. Ruran Silpa says, I have to leave the chat now. It's 2:30 a.m. there. Oh my gosh. Not healthy for a 70-year-old guy like me to stay up this late. Pleasure to be here. See you. Thank you so much for joining. Please go to bed. I wouldn't be able to be up that late, and I'm not 70. So thank you. It's been a delight having you. So yeah. All right, y'all. We might be done. We've been streaming now for an hour. I don't know if I really have anything else to talk about. If people are interested in participating either in any of the Summer of Funds activities, they can go to forum.ohmydollar.com, linked down below. We have savings challenges. We're going to have money diaries. You get cat stickers at the end of it. You get badges on the forums. And some of those will turn into live stream topics. If you're interested in making videos every week this summer, because I think some external accountability would be great, then yeah, shoot me a note on the forums, or like DM me on Twitter and let's talk. Also, if you want to get notified, I don't think we're going to move the time for the stream, but if you do want to get notified when we go live, because YouTube notifications are completely unreliable, you should check it out at taxcrew.ohmydollar.com. I'm not going to spam you. I'm just going to kind of move that there. Philip says, perhaps healthier to look at a career in hindsight rather than trying to plan it out, which is rather like gripping a handful of Jell-O. I know, I really I think that there's like the side effect that is a lot of millennials like me, that, the running joke is the gifted and talented students of millennials, that particular generation. We were the beginning of just careers do not go as planned. I think also maybe Gen X as well had some of this, where we were sold the idea that like, oh, you work hard and you do these things and you go to college and then you'll have a career and they'll take care of you. But that really stopped being true before we even got there. We graduated into the worst economy. Gen Z is even more to contend with now, but like, I think that we've realized how little loyalty companies have to us, and therefore the sold career track is just, it's such a myth. It's just like buying houses and everything else that I feel like for my generation just realized that it's not as important as we once thought. And, you know, the other thing too is that this idea that companies reward loyalty has not parsed out in the data. Like, the data shows that the best way to increase your earnings in your career is by switching companies every couple years. But we're still hold this pervasive myth that if you switch companies every couple years, you switch industries, like you're a job hopper. But realistically, like, that just doesn't parse out in the data. And, you know, it really depends on what field you're in. But in tech, if you've been somewhere for 5 years, that's a really long time. So, yeah. Cyber Shadow says most people don't have careers at all. They just go into work every day. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that statement. I think that I worked, because I did terms in AmeriCorps and I worked in voluntary poverty with Catholic workers, and then moved into the nonprofit field. There was very much this idea of a vocation. But the thing about the nonprofit field is this idea that you have a career in this field and it's serving this greater purpose. But then realistically, it doesn't allow you to take care of yourself. Like, the entire nonprofit industry, especially in this country, is propped up on people that have higher earning spouses. Because, you know, like, the whole reason I got into teaching finance in the first place is that I was working a nonprofit job, you know, full-time, salaried, and there were 30 other employees, and they came to me and said, hey, we're going to get rid of the 401k because you're the only one using it. And I was so excited to finally have a job with a retirement account and health insurance, which in 10 years in nonprofits at that point, I hadn't had. And but they didn't match, weren't advertising it to other employees. I ended up teaching a personal finance workshop to employees to try to get enrollment up in the 401k program. The irony is that my new job is going to be setting up 401k plans and doing employee education for 401k. So it's all come full circle 6 years later, 7 years later. But it's just this idea that nonprofits have some sort of moral high ground that overcomes the fact that the industry compensation is so low relative to what a similarly skilled and similarly responsible worker would be earning in the private sector or the government sector. And it means that there's a huge amount of brain drain and talent drain in the nonprofit sector, because really talented people end up moving on to government positions or private sector positions because they realize, like, they can't retire, they can't buy a house unless they happen to have come from means or married someone with means and are able to accept a lower paying job. And this idea that nonprofit jobs are more flexible, like, there's long been the selling of, like, oh, well, they have the benefit of more flexibility or whatever, which is really just a myth for the idea that there are rich women working these jobs and therefore they might be mommies and they, you know, might need to flex time out, which is like, one, other jobs should be offering that because they should want to retain people when they are parenting children. But, and there's, like, if you're getting your objectives done, then why does it matter if you're punching a clock? But I think the flip side of this is I think it's a myth that nonprofit jobs are more flexible, because I've never had a job where I've more been expected to work weekends and evenings and come in on my time off and have to flex time than in nonprofits. And I've worked in a lot of different nonprofit roles. And, you know, and all of that for what, $20 an hour at the highest end of my earning career when I was responsible for raising $2.5 million a year. Like, I think it's important to recognize that I think nonprofits have just repeated the same myths about how they work to the point where they believe it themselves. Oh, we offer more flexibility. But, like, realistically, I actually had more flexibility and more respect in my private sector roles. Philip says, move over couch to 5K. It's couch to 401K. That's brilliant, and someone should trademark that. Can I trademark that? That's brilliant. That's so good. Christy says, just go to college and it'll all work out. Lol, JK, have a great recession. Yep, 100%. The Journaling Broom says, I'm 31 and I've definitely had jobs that are in completely different fields. Totally agree on the millennial thing about jobs loyalty thing. Yes, I agree. Um, I also think like my dad worked in tech like earlier than the dot-com booms, and so and for a lot of me growing up was like a contractor, freelancer in the tech world. And I think that that kind of modeling for me of that one can have a career without it necessarily being tied to an individual company, I think it helped shape like I've slowly uncovered that I think it shaped a lot of my attitudes towards it. Uh oh, my mom is suggesting that we make house videos. Yeah, that actually isn't a bad idea. We could make some house videos. Aaron is worked on editing we've filmed 2 other videos for that channel, but we haven't put it up yet. The link for that channel is down below. It's all about building the house. But the house videos, Aaron started editing the one we did about picking appliances, and it's like we filmed over an hour just talking about buying appliances because it's like a big decision. So, yeah. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for joining. Once again, drop into the forums, join the text crew if you want to get alerted about next week's stream. Thank you for joining for this earlier stream today. We will likely be doing a planning stream next week. And then I think the week after that, we will be talking about ethical investing and shaping ethical portfolios. So thank you very much for joining. I will see you all soon. Please stay safe, stay hydrated, pet a cat if you have one available, and I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.